Hey guys, it's Orlando with Filmatic. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going over camera operating for dummies. Ultimately, it is a workshop that I did at the Houston Media Conference just last weekend. And since I put it together, I might as well just go ahead and bring it on the channel. If you're someone that's working in the film industry or even in the video industry, maybe you're doing social media and working with a creative director or social media content creator, you can use a lot of these terms to just try to make sure that you understand what exactly they are looking for in the next shot or the next frame for their video. Most of these terms are based in the film world, but they can easily apply to anything else. And ultimately, you just have to understand that this is for us to better our communication skills with those people like creative directors, DPs, social media content creators, and so on and so on. All this is based under what we would call camera operating. And in the film world, there's a camera operator that normally works under the cinematographer. I'm a cinematographer based in Houston, Texas. The majority of the times I am operating my own camera. But there are many other instances, like you've seen on my channel, where I might have 4 or 5 cameras. So I have several camera operators. Being able to tell my camera operator what I'm looking for with the several terms to get the picture really quick is super important. So let's go over what camera operating is. A camera operator in film is responsible for physically operating the camera and capturing the visual elements of a scene, translating the director's vision into moving images. They work closely with the director of photography to ensure shots are framed, composed, and executed as intended. The easiest way to go about this is to understand that the camera operator is the one that makes sure the vision, the framing, the composition, all the things that is in the director of photography's brain or the director's brain is being accomplished by operating the camera to do so. So let's go over 4 simple terms that are going to help us in this camera operating workshop. We're going to go over frame size, angles, composition, and movement. So let's start with frame size. In cinematography, frame size, also known as shot size or framing, refers to the amount of a subject or setting visible within the camera's frame. It describes the scale of the subject relative to its surrounding. So how big the surrounding is compared to the subject. Let's look at a couple frame sizes here. Let's start with the extreme wide. The extreme wide, you can see that our subject is very small in the middle of the frame, and its surroundings are kind of engulfing the frame. You can almost picture this in most extreme wides. You can barely make out the subject sometimes, and these are things that probably are establishing the surroundings and are telling you where we're currently at in the world inside the film. Next one we'll go to is the wide shot. The wide shot, you can tell we're a little bit closer, and compared to an extreme wide where you can barely make out the subject, on a wide you can start making out your subject a little bit more. Maybe the point of the camera is leading more towards who we're going to be focusing on pretty soon in the frame. And of course, we get into a medium wide, meaning that now our subject, we're getting a little bit closer. In my opinion, a medium wide starts somewhere below the hips and goes up to the head. It's still more engulfed by the surroundings. So this is something that you're going to actually have to figure out with the director or the person that is guiding you, because you're going to get to find out what they will consider a medium wide. And then you get closer to a medium. And I would say that a medium is almost somewhere chest height all the way up to the top of the head. And then we go into what we would consider a medium close-up. A medium close-up, I would say, starts right at the neckline and goes above the head and gets you a little bit closer. Now we're allowing our subject to fill more of the frame. And medium close-up is just that. We're jumping into the person's environment. So where earlier on the wide we were just taken up by the surroundings, now we're completely in the person's space. That's where we get to the close-up. The close-up is above the necktie up to the head, and you can really see the person's emotions. You can see maybe who they're talking to. You can see their mannerisms. You can get a little bit more insight on what's happening in the subject's mind. We can jump into something even closer that we would consider an extreme close-up. And sometimes extreme close-ups, that could be anywhere between from the chin to the head, somewhere in between. And it could also be extreme close-ups, could be macro shots. It could be as close as, the eye or the mouth. Ultimately, in frame size and shot size, we're just trying to figure out how much or how little we want to see the subject compared to its surroundings. So next up, we got camera angles. And camera angles in film refer to the position and perspective from which a shot is taken, and they play a crucial role in shaping the audience perception of a scene and its character. Ultimately, it's where you're positioning the camera, above or below, or on top of, or under your subject. And this allows us to pretty much frame it in a way that gives a person a different perspective or a different feeling, just so that it can shape your understanding of the person. So let's start off with the bird's eye view or the God view. Now we would probably consider this the drone shot. It's one of those things that before we gave this great landscape shots, these massive wides where they're floating above the skyline and they're just kind of flying in. We would call this the God's view or the bird's view because it was nearly impossible to get any of these kinds of shots without airplanes, helicopters, those kinds of things. Now, a lot of people just call them the drone shots. We need aerials. But ultimately, that's what it is. You're showing massive landscapes. You're showing big areas of space and locations. So that's your God view. The next angle that we're looking at is something called the low angle. Low angle is generally anything that's below the eye line. So a low angle can be literally touching the floor all the way to like right under the chin, but anything that is under the eye line is what you would consider a low angle. Of course, you also have a high angle, so anything above the eye line and shooting down all the way up to over the top would be considered a high angle shot. We also have a Dutch angle shot. Dutch angle shots are pretty much a tilted camera or anything that's a little bit skewed that allows uneasiness and allows for the viewer to feel like something is not balanced and is kind of out of order. You see these kinds of shots used in a ton of places like horror films and scary movies just to set uneasiness within the viewer. One of the key terms that I love hearing is the OTS, the over-the-shoulder shot. It's one of my favorites, especially if you do a lot of narrative where people have to speak between one and another. You want to have the OTS. You want to have the over-the-shoulder shot. And this isn't unique to just dialogue-heavy scenes. You can also do things like over the shoulder of the same person. Like, let's say they're looking in the mirror and they're screaming at the mirror. You can actually dirty up the frame by putting their shoulder into it and getting that reverse reflection. So OTS is super important because it helps you understand that you're viewing something that the person themselves is viewing. We also have the clean single or the clean shot. The clean shot or the clean angle is something that's just an unobstructed view of the subject that you're showing. Sometimes you might have something what we talked a little bit earlier about a dirty frame where you have maybe like a tree branch or something covering up the frame a little bit. That is still a dirty shot because it is something obstructing the frame. Another angle that we like to say all the time is a two shot. A two shot is when you have two people within the frame, and these are cool because you can get really, really creative on how you balance the frame and how you create movement within frame using a two shot. The same goes for something that's called a three shot, where you have three people in the frame. And of course, if you have, anytime there's four or more within the frame, that's called a group shot, crowd shot. Even if you're doing a massive scene with a ton of extras, that we call those crowd shots or group shots. And it's always fun trying to pick out how you're going to build a dynamic scene, putting that many people within the frame. So hopefully those help you kind of figure out whether someone wants to just get a two shot, a three shot, or a group shot whenever you're dealing with a lot of people within the frame. Another popular angle is something that's called the insert shot. The insert shot is something that's very specific to the scene, or it could be a product that you're showing off. It could be anything that is super important to the story. If you're out there doing a project for a client and they have a talking head, but we're talking about a certain product, well, all those product shots are technically insert shots. So you never want to forget the insert shots because they're the most important. There's all kinds of cool ways to use insert shots, and it's one of those things that you can always jump to or be really creative with. So don't forget your insert shots. And of course, there's a lot of different shots that you can look up. There's a ton of them. A lot of them are variations of what I've currently talked about, whether it's high angle, low angle. There's a lot of different shots that are very, very specific, but they're kind of open to interpretation. If there's any that you like and that you love and that you think I forgot, make sure to add those below. Okay, and now we're in composition. Composition refers to the arrangement of visual elements within frame to create a visually appealing and meaningful shot. Not only are we focusing on the subject, the surrounding elements that we're using within the film, we get to compose and select the things that we like the best about those within the frame. And that's what I love personally about composition. Let's go over a couple of ways to compose your shots. Okay, so here we have a center frame. A center frame is essentially that. You put someone right in the middle of the frame. This is one of the easiest ones to do. You can go ahead and put the person right in the middle of the frame. In this example, our subject is breaking the fourth wall. They're looking right into the camera because after what happened in the scene, they're looking straight at the person and almost looking at them like, didn't you see what just happened too? Another composition that we have is left heavy and or left side. That means that your subject or what you're trying to point out within the frame is more on your left side. And this is one of those things where you kind of have to figure out how far left you want it to go based on what your director or client wants, because there's been many times where I might set someone in what we would call the rule of thirds right in the middle left frame, and they even want it more extreme or less extreme. So just knowing that you want someone to be on the left side isn't enough there. You want a little bit more clarity in this one. So just know that whenever they say put them on the left side, you can always say, okay, well, how far and how close to the center you want them. And the same thing applies for right heavy, the right side, where you're doing the opposite of that and you're putting them on the right side of the frame. Here we have a balanced image, and this one was a little bit easy to do because we put Scarface here. The idea ultimately is to take different elements within the frame so that it feels like that you have a cohesive look. The next one is symmetricals. There's many famous directors out there that most of their films are very, very symmetrical, and they're very well balanced as well. Here we're using kind of the organic shapes of trees and walking within the woods to try to give this very, very symmetrical feel to the frame. There's many, many more compositions that are available for you to check out. Just look up cool compositions online. I'm going through very few and just some that are super basic that hopefully can get the conversation started with your client so that you can understand where they're trying to get to. There's other compositions and things you can look at. You can look at rule of thirds. You can look at quadrants. I would say, just go and try to see what you like and build off of that. You'll be pleasantly surprised how you can create something that feels cool and unique. And, as long as you have intent and design behind it, you can create some pretty cool compositions. And this is one of my favorites. This is all about movement. And movement in film is literally referring to where we physically put the camera. So how we move it, how fast we move the camera, all those things kind of help you in your movement. And I think that's one of the things that we all need to figure out when we're speaking to our director of photography, to find out exactly what they're going for. So there's times where we might be panning and they say, hey, go a little bit slower or a little bit faster, whip pan, all those kinds of things. So the first one that we're going to talk about today is panning. Many people say this is a joke in the industry where a lot of people hate when people say pan up or pan in or pan down. And that's because a pan in film terms usually means, or definitely means, to turn on the axis left or right. So almost scanning the room left to right with your view. If you do the same going vertically, then you are on the tilt axis. You're tilting up and down. We have a lot of people that are super particular about those terms because when they're operating, they want to make sure they get exactly what you're asking for. What I've found throughout the years that if I get very, very nitpicky on what they're saying, I could find myself without a job. So I try to learn, I try to communicate, and figure out exactly what they mean. So pan, once again, that's left to right to left, anything that's scanning the room, even if it means that I'm in the center of the room and I'm scanning all the way to the left, 360, that is a pan. If I'm doing the same thing on a tilt, I am tilting up and down. That means that my axis stays the same. That means that the camera stays the same, and I'm just tilting up and down. Dolly. So dollies are something that dollying and tracking, that's some of my favorite movements. That's ultimately taking the camera and being able to move them on the axis, going forward and back on that Z axis allows us to dolly in, dolly out, push in, pull out, and then it also allows us to track on the Y axis when we're going left to right. We can do that. We can also parallax around someone, but this would still be considered a dolly. So a dolly move is essentially that, being able to be pushed or move around on the axis. And it's some of my favorite moves that we've done. Another one of my favorite techniques or shots to get are the crane or the jib shots, where you take the camera and you lift the camera or you bring it down. It's something that allows the viewer to be able to see a new perspective, bringing them from the bottom of an angle all the way above the subject. This is what we call the crane up, crane down, boom up. A lot of people use this technique. It's really, really awesome. There's also techno cranes that allow you to push in and crane up as you're going along. You can also tilt up and down or pan right or left as you're doing these moves using a jib or a crane. So really, really fun stuff. We use it a lot in music videos, and we've definitely used it for different dynamic shots. Another movement that you see a lot in films is the zooming technique. And zooming, ultimately, you need to use zoom lenses. There's some really cool ones out there, but it allows you to stay where you're positioned, and using optics and optics only, you can zoom in closer to your subject. It's a really cool, fun technique. Here you can see us, we're filming on a wire cam during this festival, and you can see that we're pushing in for a zoom just to give you that little bit of effect while you're in the air. Another technique that's used quite a bit, and I've done several features and projects like this where we have to do all handheld. And handheld is a technique that you're literally holding the camera. It's a little bit shaky, but you still want to have full control. So you're literally a walking tripod. But it's a very, very fun thing to do if you've never camera operated that way. I know social media, it's a lot easier doing handheld with the little phone and being able to turn around, whip pan, do all that cool stuff. All that in image stabilization that's in the iPhones and Androids today make it super easy. So we do a lot of that as well. But yeah, handheld is something. It's a technique that we use a lot in films. You can see this be popularized in films like Jason Bourne and a bunch of other ones. One of my favorite movement types is the Steadicam. Steadicam is unique all on its own. It's a mechanically balanced camera that allows you to move in different axes, and it usually is being held up by a Steadicam operator. Pan the head, they can tilt up and down on the axis, and they can move around. It's great for chasing. It's great for making sure that you have a very, very smooth shot. A lot of people say that they're the same as gimbals, but gimbals are more electronically based. Even though Steadicams now are electronic, they do have gyros, and they have limiters and stuff now that allows them to keep a very good balance and to keep that horizontal line in place. So yeah, all those are really cool movement techniques and movement shots, or different style of movements that you can use within your film. Now, the one thing I want to say, understanding your frame size, your angles, your composition, and your movement, go out and create a dope shot list for your next project, or even just talk game or talk shop with your client to just try to figure out what exactly are the tools that you might need for your next project. Ultimately, I'm putting this together so that you can have a better understanding, or you can better explain to your client what are the kind of things they may need for their film, their project, their social media content, or anything else. With that said, my name is Orlando Briones with Filmatic. I'm a cinematographer based in Houston, Texas. If you like this kind of content and you like following a cinematographer that's a sole proprietor that's been building their own stuff for the past 15 years, make sure to follow. Make sure to sub and all that cool stuff. We're trying to hit 2,500 subs in August. We finally got it. Our next goal is 3,000. So if you can help us with that, please like, share, all that cool stuff. And if you have any questions or like to add any other commentary, please do so below. We'll be talking. Take care, guys. Peace. Oh, yeah.